So today on Simply Happy Conversations, I have with me Lisa, and she's from Own Your Health Collective, and she is a nutritionalist, health coach, and she works with mainly women around perimenopause. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks for having me today, Narelle.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for your time. It's so great to be able to have you on to share some of your skills and knowledge that you have around, especially around perimenopause.
Yes, it's a lovely area, and I really do enjoy working in it. So thanks again.
I love that you've actually really niched down into this particular area, and that's how I found you, was because of my own interest in that at the moment. So maybe tell us something you like to do in your free time.
Well, look, in my free time, I do love to, I'm pretty normal. I love going places with my family and friends and just spending time with them, because I find that we're so busy during the week with work. It's, that catch up sort of thing. I especially love to try a new restaurant or cuisine, and I love doing that with my boys, especially just to see, look, they love their food as much as I do, and obviously a big foodie, but I love seeing their faces and their thoughts around, something when it's new. So that's really exciting. And I really love getting away on a holiday, which, of course, we haven't been able to do too much in the last 2 years. So I feel a little bit cheated there. But a few years ago, we did 9 weeks in the Kimberleys, and that was just fantastic. And now that we're out of lockdown, I'm still a little bit restricted because my eldest is halfway through year 11. So we're a little bit restricted as to what we can do, but I'm starting to see what I can organise for a longer break in January. So, and I love going to the movies. I love reading, especially around nutrition and women's health. And when I get the time, and I've got to fit this in a little bit more, I love to play the piano, do some drawing, or even some sewing.
Oh, beautiful. So have you
creative spark?
That creative side. So do you have a favorite type of style of cuisine that you like, restaurants you like to go to?
Look, I love Asian because of the freshness of the flavors, but I'm sort of open to a lot of different ones. Look, that whole Asian, probably stuff that I wouldn't cook at home so much, or if it is Italian or something like somewhere different. The boys I always love it because we might go to a new restaurant, and my eldest will say, oh, this is my favorite restaurant now. So every time we go, this is his favorite. So, I love Chin Chin and, all those beautiful, you just walk up Flinders Lane and Little Collins Street, and there's just so many wonderful restaurants in the city. And I have been trying to go back into the city to do that. And look, my favorite one that for the Melburnians here is Farmer's Daughter in Exhibition Street. I've been there twice now, and they have regional cuisine from Gippsland. I haven't taken my boys there yet, but I've been there twice, and it's sensational.
So that's so funny. I went there the other week with some friends, but we didn't eat. We just had a drink before we went out to dinner, and it looked amazing. The people beside us and stuff. I was like, wow, look at their food.
So No, they've got a great bar area, which I haven't been to. I've just had a look at it. But it looks fantastic the way they've done it.
Yeah, great. And doesn't matter what the weather is, because it was freezing cold, so it was fine to sit up there as well.
Yeah, they've really designed it really well.
They have, haven't they? So then tell us about the business, Own Your Health Collective, and how it started. And because it's not just you, there's also Natalie as well, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah. So look, I always had a yearning to do something in the health and wellness food and field. And I suppose definitely in that nutrition and food space. And food for me has always been a real connection. I've got a Maltese background, so we've always gathered together with food and things like that. And strangely enough, though, I didn't do that when I finished school. I went into the corporate property area, and worked there for a long time. And then when I had my kids in my early mid-30s to late 30s, it was a real changer for me in relation to what I was feeding them. I became even more aware of what I was putting into my body. I had a breast cancer scare when I was 40. So that really heightened my awareness around it. So I changed careers and went into that food space, and I had my own business. And then I met Natalie, who's my business partner, and we started working together in 2019. And that was all around, helping more, really starting to niche into that women's health area, but still doing the general health and wellness. And we sort of went forward from there, and Own Your Health Collective was born. We'd come from our own respective businesses at that time. So that's really how it came about in a nutshell. And and we started niching, as you mentioned, alluded to, around that perimenopause and menopause space as well. So it's quite amazing. I find, or we both find, that women are coming into this area of their life, but they don't know much about it. But yet when you ask them about their family, they can tell you what is exactly going on with their kids and their parents and their husband. But then it comes to them and they don't know much about their own bodies. And I find, there is a power within our bodies, and we really need to just, be more educated about that, starting right from when, they're younger, both girls and boys, actually, because it affects men as well, in a relationship and at work. And I find the conversations we've even had with men is that when they find out a little bit more, they can support their loved ones more, they can support their employees in the workspace and all that kind of thing. So it's sort of, it has evolved, but we're loving the area, the space that we're in at the moment.
I love that feedback that you said about employees and husbands, because I think you shared that in one of your podcasts, and it was like, yeah, that's such a great, takeaway from you sharing this information. And I know for myself, I think it was 2 years ago when I started, and it was like a missed period, and my husband was like, that maybe you're going through perimenopause. I was like, really? Did the test, and he's like, and then I was like, but I don't know anything about it yet. And so Googling and stuff. And it was like, tick, tick. And so that's how I then fell into hearing about you as well and following your podcast, which is fantastic. And I highly recommend people checking out and listening to both of you and both of you talk, as well as all the interviews that you do with some great guests who are all experts in their field as well.
Yeah, it's been really enlightening, actually. And that's a lot of the feedback that we're getting from the podcast, which is called Peri Menopause Power, by the way. And it's really, just women just saying, oh, I really resonated with X, Y, and Z, some more than others. And, everyone's got a story, and we invite them to come on and tell it. And it's also different, and we have a lot of laughs along the way as well.
Yes, definitely. I think that's why I like listening.
You've got to laugh. You've got to laugh at this stage of life, don't you? And I think as serious as, what it is and what it can be if you don't look after yourself at this stage of life and some of the health concerns that come out of it, you also need to turn it into a comical thing. And, I remember the first hot flush I got was like last year. And I was rushing that, and I had a meeting to go to, and I was rushing to go to the meeting, and I just woofed down a coffee, and I had this. I've been a lover of woolen jumpers with a turtleneck for a long time, and I've got into the car and I got all sweaty, and this flush of heat came over, and I just rang Nat and I said, oh, Nat, I think I've just had my first hot flush. Well, we were absolutely laughing our heads off. Like, we thought it was hilarious, So, and sharing it with others and talking about it, it's just the most powerful thing you can be doing.
Definitely. So maybe take a step back and tell us a bit about what perimenopause is for the people out there who may be like, oh, I don't even know what they're like. I know it, but don't really know it.
Yeah. So perimenopause is basically the lead up to menopause. So when you'll often hear someone say that I'm in menopause. So menopause is just one day. So menopause is 12 months after your last period, your final menstrual period, but you don't actually know that until 12 months later. So, and if you go into this stage of life actively, charting your cycle and really understanding your cycle as it leads into it, it's even more powerful because you can sort of say, oh yeah, that was the last time, So perimenopause is that time leading up to that one day, and that can last, on average, they say 2 to 8 years, but for some women it can be longer. And for me, I know it started in my early 40s, and I talk about it on the podcast, and it's just different symptoms that have happened along the way. For me, it started as anxiety and pretty full on mood changes, and and then irregular periods like that is an absolute, telltale sign that you've started perimenopause. And, up until the last sort of 18 months, I was probably menstruating every 2 to 2.5 weeks, sometimes 3. So, that's just something, brain fog, had heart palpitations. So, there's over 35 symptoms that can happen in perimenopause. Woohoo, lucky us, right?
Yeah.
So, so it's just being aware of them. And I think with what we do with perimenopause too is help educate women to get through it, understand it, and also be accepting of it with a mindset that is, oh, okay, like I might have a hot flush. It's like, well, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to do some deep breathing, and I'll probably take a jumper off because I'm getting too hot, and I'm just going to work through it, and I'm just going to accept it. And you know what? And it passes. It's like this too shall pass. So, and look, there are, I shouldn't make too fun of it, because there are some women that have some really terrible symptoms out of it as well. But for the most part, that's what perimenopause is. It's that lead up to that time, and it is accompanied by some of those symptoms that can go on still after that day of menopause, and you become postmenopausal. So that's not great either.
Oh, thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah,
Because I think when I heard it on your podcast, I was like, oh, right. So I need to be calling it perimenopause, not menopause, because it's not the end.
Yes.
So then what sort of services do you have, to support people and support women in this area? And even men, because I heard you talk about corporate sessions that you guys provide as well.
Yeah. So look, we do a lot in the space. So we do a lot of, we've just recently opened our own health and wellness hub in East Keilor here in Melbourne. And from that space, we do a lot of our coaching there in face-to-face and online. Natalie's also a wellness and mindset coach, and also a yoga teacher. So we do a lot through movement. So that yoga for supporting women at this time, and that lifestyle, how they can actually bring it into their lifestyle and use a movement that really supports them through this time of their life. And I've just actually we're going to start some cooking from the hub. We've got a great kitchen space, and that's all about cooking for your hormonal support as well. So there is a bit of tweaking that I find that, with ingredients possibly that you need to be doing as you're in perimenopause and moving forward, that, some more certain ingredients that can support you at this time. So that's the coaching side of it. But we also work with corporates, and that's all about shifting mindsets and developing positive and inclusive cultures so that they can be helping others in the workplace, and, break down those taboos for women, but also educate the whole workforce. There was an article that I put in, and I can't remember the name of the company, but it was a company based in the UK, and I posted it in my personal profile in LinkedIn a few weeks ago. And they were talking about the benefits that their employees have gained from actually being educated about it, running focus groups about it, and just knowing what it's about. And then also managers being able to talk to their employees that are going through it, and just being informed. So, if we don't know about something, we're probably less likely to talk about it than if we do, we will have the conversation. And, there's that element also of helping workplaces. Okay, so how can you set up a workplace to support these women? So it could be, first steps could be actually developing an area where women can go to if they are feeling warm and hot flushes. So it might be, a meeting room they can work out for the day, or, for that hour or whatever. That's a little bit cooler for them. It could be, just having a space where they can just take themselves off, where they could be feeling anxious for whatever reason, stressed, whatever. And then it could be, they might be feeling really unwell that day because of their symptoms, so they're going to be working from home. And haven't we all become really good at doing that? And then the third option is, for workplaces to actually review menopause policies, menstrual and menopause policies that support women through this time in their lives. So, women at this time really want to keep working, and there's a number of women leaving the workforce in droves because they're not getting that support to be able to work in the workplace. So then they don't want to talk about it because it's not commonplace to be talking about it. So, you know, there's that element of having a menopause policy where women can work from home, you know, for certain days of the year or the month or whatever it is, and be able to do their work, and be able to do, you know, they're not sick. They're just experiencing symptoms of, you know, of menopause or menstrual health that they need the support with. So, you know, there was this stat in recently in Vogue magazine, and they quoted that 6.3 million women aged 40 and over make up 24.5% of the total population currently in Australia. So, you know, menopausal women are one of the fastest growing demographics in Australia and across the world. So we need to really be, you know, doing something about that in a positive light, you know, and for all the other policies that have come before it, you know, we've got, I remember when parental leave, maternal leave, LGBTIQ, all of that was, you know, it was being talked about. So I feel like, you know, we feel like this is the next type of policy that workplaces can also be doing, and actually supporting their workforce as well.
That's wonderful.
Sorry.
I love that.
Does that answer your question?
That's
Sorry,
perfect.
It was a bit long-winded.
No, I think that's great. And it's great for people to, you know, to understand some of the work that you're doing is, you know, bigger and out there helping, you know, other businesses hear about this and change policies, which is wonderful for us.
And like, I was just going to say too. Sorry. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, you also talked, because I love how you, in one of your interviews, how you were talking about the golf example. That was amazing too. Like, just to conversations are changing, you know, and people's reactions maybe haven't quite caught up yet, have they?
No, and I think we've just, and you make a really good point, because a number of corporates that we have spoken to and are currently speaking with, they're really umming and ahhing around, well, you know, how do we do that? And it's like, you know what, you've just got to go forth and start the conversation. But the way that you do that is something that we can, you know, you can go, there are some companies that just want to go lightly. That's totally fine. And then we've got another company that we are running a Thriving in Menopause workshop across all of their Melbourne offices in the lead up to Women's Health Week. So they just want to go out there and put it out there, and, you know, but there are some other companies that sort of say, hey, I want to go lightly. So that might involve us doing a questionnaire and then running a focus group from that questionnaire, producing a report that gives us some information, and then we can work out next steps with with that company in relation to where they want to go forward with that. So totally understand that, but I think the biggest thing is that you've just got to start the conversation somewhere, and, you know, don't delay it. Just get going, because actually a lot of people come out of the woodwork. That, you know, you often find that you talk, you know, I don't know about you, but you'll be talking with a group of women, and I was out at a 50th on the weekend, and someone was talking about weight gain. And so I was saying, well, you know, these are some of the reasons why. And it was like, oh, wow, you know, that was really, and before you know it, everyone wants to putting up their hand. It's like, oh, I want to say something too, you know, so it's really there. And I think that when we open up that conversation, it will normalize it. Okay, it's, you know, for everyone involved, not just women, but, you know, men. I talk about it with my kids.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm always complaining, can we turn the heater down? And my husband the other day was like, you know, Mum's getting these hot flushes all the time because she's at the end of her cycle, guys. So we have to support her. It's more, a lot more accepted. I don't remember, you know, having that conversation within my own family when I was growing up. So it's great to see these changes. So maybe share some top tips around how people can support themselves during menopause, perimenopause.
Yeah, and look, you know what? These tips that I've put together are they're tips that we can do at any part of our life cycle, you know, that we go through, but they become even more important for women as they're starting to enter this cycle of their life. One of the things that I love telling people is to eat seasonally, because your body really loves eating, you know, food that's in season, that supports it. That's how we've evolved. Listen to your body. You know, one of the things with perimenopause is a lot of women, they notice something, but they don't listen to their body as to say, so your body knocking on the door saying, hey, here's a symptom, here's something's going a little bit different. You're not crazy. What you're thinking is like, oh, because I remember thinking when my periods got a little bit irregular, I thought, gee, that's a little bit weird. And then after a while, the penny drop's gone, oh, right. So listen to your body, and even keep a diary or, notes on your phone about different things that you think that's just a little bit out of the ordinary. I could be, overthinking it, but, write it down, date it, and then see if things are starting to come through. That's a really good one. Do one thing at a time. Yeah. Do one thing at a time. Now, if my husband listens to this podcast, he's going to laugh because he's always saying to me, Lise, just do one thing at a time. So I'm notorious, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, Narelle.
Because I'm the same.
Yes, I'm notorious for doing things, too many things at one time, and then it's like I've got nothing done. So I have learnt and am learning just to do one thing at a time. And the way that I do that, I am the master of lists. I've always been a list taker. So what I have been doing now is creating a master list at the start of the week. And then I write everything I want down on that. And the reason I do that is because there are things obviously I want to achieve through the week, but there's also things that just pop in my mind and I think, oh, I really need to remember that. So I park it all, and which means then that I have a better sleep because I'm going to sleep with knowing that I've parked those ideas that I then don't have to get up the next morning and think, now what was it that I was talking about?
Or if you were woken up that night in the middle of the night.
That's right.
And you're as well.
Exactly that. So, and that has the flow on effect of, decreasing your stress, decreasing anxiety levels because you're thinking, oh, I knew it was really important and I just can't remember, what it is. And then from that master list, I create a little list for the day. So for that day, I think, okay, I want to tick off these 3 or 4 things, and great. And then I love crossing them off my master list. So, and, if I'm taking things from my master list from one week to the next, but it's getting smaller or I'm adding new things to it, totally fine. But that's how I work. So, and the message in all of that is trying to look at things that can really dampen your stress and your anxiety, because in perimenopause, especially, that increase in cortisol can trump a whole lot of other things that your body needs to be doing as well. So cortisol reigns as king, queen, whatever you want to call it. So we want to dampen that stress response so other things can happen as well. And you just feel more comfortable and more, at peace, I suppose. Going back to the food thing, another tip is fill your plate with vegetables and healthy fats and good proteins. And that includes, things like leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. They're all coming into season, and they're really awesome for your health and really awesome for your liver also. So our liver works really hard to make sure it's getting rid of the hormones that we no longer use and, cholesterol that we don't need and all that kind of stuff. But we need cholesterol as well for our hormones also. And we tend to have this tendency to fill our plates with lots of carbohydrates rather than veggies. And look, carbohydrates have their place, but I think we need to concentrate more on those greens and, beautiful cruciferous vegetables as well. And one of my favourite ways to have some really beautiful carbohydrates when I am having them is to cut up sweet potato into like French fry shapes. And I toss it in some olive oil and some nice sea salt and pepper. And then I put it on a tray and I sprinkle it with cinnamon and I roast it. It is the bomb.
Delicious.
So it goes really well as well. And the last thing I wanted to share there was around eating your healthy fats. And I mentioned that. So a lot of women tend to be really scared of fat. Now, fat doesn't make you fat if it's going to be a healthy fat that you're consuming. We're talking about avocado, olives, olive oils, nuts and seeds, and some nice fish like salmon and sardine. And don't knock sardines till you try it, I will say. And we need those healthy fats for our hormones, to get them firing along, because, the body still will make a little base level of estrogen. And, perimenopause is also that decrease of the sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen. And estrogen has a really big job, especially in our body. So does progesterone, but it feeds into so many different body systems as well. So we still want to be able to support the body with making, a bit of a baseline of estrogen in our bodies, which it does through our adrenal glands. They take over that once our reproductive system has stopped actually making our estrogen in our normal menstrual stage. So, healthy fats is one of those things, and it gives us satiety too. So it fills us up. So as women, we tend to eat a lot of things, but not really get full. So our body starts saying, I still need something to fill me up.
Yeah.
So healthy fats, avocado, guacamole is your friend.
Yeah, that's great. Great tips. Thank you so much. They're all really, really useful tips. And I think anyone could be using them any time of their life cycle.
Absolutely.
But definitely in particular, it's great. I love your first one though, writing down things, because I think adding on to that is writing down things and then listening to your podcast, because every time I listen to a person, that you've interviewed or yourself, I'm like, oh, that's another symptom that I didn't realize. In particular, the heart palpitations, which, I'd been having for a long time, and I'd seen the doctor and she was like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. Everything else, is fine. So, but she never actually mentioned it as a, perimenopause. So that was great to hear that. So I think it's great to listen to your podcast, hear some of these other ones, and, have it against your record that you've been keeping with things that maybe you're like, oh, that doesn't normally happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a good point too, Narelle. I had the same thing. I've got a great doctor, and a GP, but she's not, not really well versed in menopause, and not all doctors are. It doesn't mean that that they don't know their stuff. But that was early on, and we never put it down to perimenopause. But now I know that it was definitely a telltale sign, and that's a really good point too for your listeners, that if they're not getting, if their gut's telling them no, it's something else, definitely maybe, look at seeing someone or working with a doctor that is experienced in that area, or coming to see us. But, working with a coach or a doctor or an allied health professional that's got a little bit more experience in that. And then see, if that is something else that they, it sort of dampens their curiosity around, look, I actually think it's a bit more than this.
Yeah, definitely. So how can people connect with you and find you?
So you can find us on, we have a website called ownyourhealthco.com.au, and the little W's just before that, of course. We are on Instagram as Own Your Health Co. We're on Facebook as Own Your Health Collective, and we've both, and then we're also on LinkedIn as well. We've also got our own personal accounts also. So there's a lot of places you can find us.
And the podcast?
Oh, and the podcast, yes, Peri Menopause Power. And we drop a session, an episode pretty much every Monday. And it's really easy. They range in, from 20 to 30, or maybe we just hit the 40-minute mark with Renata Bernardi's podcast that dropped this week. It is. And look, we've got some really great ones coming up. And most notably, we've got Dr. Fatima Khan, who is a menopause specialist, coming up too. So that'll be an absolute cracker to listen to. And that one may go a little bit longer, because I think we've got a few questions to ask her.
Oh, yes, I'm sure that'll be great. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to listen to all your tips and share your wisdom. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks for having me, Narelle.